Welcome to Smash Live. It's the fourth edition, and my name is Andy Lynes, and I'm a food and drink writer. I publish Smashed on Substack, and I write for various publications, including the Observer Food Weekly, um, and so we do these regularly once a month at the moment, and speak to movers and shakers in the food and drink world. And this evening we've got Mark Hix with us, and we're just waiting for a few more people to join us before we kick off properly.
I'm having a glass of Tonic's wine whilst we're waiting.
Yes. And I'll have some water.
Well, I would offer to pour you a glass, Andy. It's very good, though.
To Chalmers to Brighton.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's still no one with us at the moment, which is...
Oh, I've got the names coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're all coming up.
Okay. Okay, yes.
It's quite
okay,
few.
Sorry, I've got... We're going to have to edit this now before we put this out on the recording. So apologies for that. I'm seeing no one on there, but obviously they are coming up.
Yeah, they're all flipping up on my left-hand side.
Marvellous. So I'll... I don't know who's heard what so far, but it's Smash Live with me, Andy Lynes, and my guest, Mark Hix, and I'll introduce him properly. Mark is, it's fair to say, one of the UK's finest chefs. He's the former chef director of Caprice Holdings, and he oversaw restaurants, including the Ivy and the Caprice. He went on to launch his own restaurant group with numerous restaurants across London, and also had the Hix Oyster House and Fish House in Lyme Regis. Mark is also one of our leading food writers and cooking writers with 12 books to his name. His most recent book, Adventures in Angling and Eating, is inspired by his lifelong passion for fishing. He has a recipe column in the Telegraph and previously wrote for The Independent for 14 years, and he's a recognised authority on British cooking and ingredients. He currently runs Mark's Kitchen Table dining experience from his own home in Charlton, Dorset. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Andy. It's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah, I was trying to think the last time we met, but I completely forgot. So it's been a while ago.
A couple of years ago.
Before we start, just want to say in the sort of second half of this, or later on in the broadcast, Mark has agreed to answer your sort of culinary queries. So if you've got any burning questions,
no difficult ones. Otherwise, I'll start ranting.
Please put them in the message in the chat box. Sorry. So I hope everyone can hear me. Could somebody just write in the chat box if they can hear? Actually, Mark, would you mind asking? Just
of course. Yeah.
If you just ask them, just ask the viewers to say. Mark, if you just say, can you all
hear us? Now there are lots of people's boxes coming up. I think that's better now. I'm getting a few people messaging. I say maybe they can't hear us. I don't know. I can. Okay, yeah, they can hear. Everyone can hear.
Okay, brilliant. All right. So I don't know what's going on with my.
Okay, let's presume that you can all hear. Send us a message if you can't hear us.
Yeah. Okay. So please put your questions to Mark in the chat box. So we're going to kick off now talking about Mark's career. So I mentioned your book Hooked, which is about your lifelong passion.
Yeah, that was.
Is that what got you into the food world first?
No, not really. I mean, basically, when I was leaving school, probably like most people, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So in the 5th year at school, I'm sure a few people have heard this story. It was the first time that the boys were able to do domestic science instead of metalwork, and the girls could do metalwork. So 3 of us thought it'd be a good idea to do domestic science because we'd be in a classroom full of girls. So when we turned up on day 1, there was the 3 boys and the teacher. All the girls were in a jam-packed metalwork class. So we sort of did it for a year, a bit of a laugh. I then still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do because it wasn't. It didn't occur to me that food might be my career. So my dad was good friends with a guy called Hamish, who was a musician and had a restaurant in Bridport in Dorset. So we met him in the pub, and he said, "Why don't you send Mark to Weymouth College?" Which he did. So I did that for 2 years, had a really good lecturer called Laurie Mills, and he sort of lived and breathed food, thankfully. Always talked about London. He was a bit sort of naughty, as some of those lecturers were. We used to do this thing on a Thursday afternoon called electives, which meant you could do a different subject than what you were studying. And on electives, we'd go to the pub and then go back to his flat and have a party. That wasn't on the curriculum at the time. But, but I sort of thought to myself, oh, this is good fun. I need to go to London and follow in his footsteps. And I actually did. He worked at the Grosvenor House and the Dorchester, which I managed to get jobs at. So that was my kind of London, start off career. Well, my very first job, I couldn't get a job at either of those, but I got a job in the staff canteen at the Hilton on Park Lane, and then went to the Grosvenor House, and then went to the Dorchester.
So that was the Grand London hotels was your sort of grounding.
Yeah, that was my grounding for the first sort of 5 years. And it was, back then the hotels were proper old-fashioned hotel kitchens. I was lucky enough to work under Anton Edelman at the Grosvenor House, and they'd just opened 90 Park Lane, which then became Nico. I then my friends were working at the Dorchester, so I went then after 2 years to work for Mosiman at the Dorchester. One of his old sous chefs then poached me to work at a little restaurant in the city called Mr. Pontack's, the Candlewick Room. So I went there as a sous chef. After about a year, he decided to leave. I was only 21 or something, so I asked the owner, Philip Isles, if I could have his job as head chef. I was properly underqualified, but was dead keen on food. So I did that for sort of 4 years. And then my fishmonger at the time, Tony Allen, who had just started up in the fish business, phoned me one day. He said, "There's a job at the Caprice going." Working in the city, I was a new boy and didn't really know much about the Caprice. You couldn't Google it then, so I sort of had to make a few phone calls. And after about 4 or 5 interviews with Chris and Jeremy, managed to get the job at the Caprice. And that was really my proper, because I stayed there for 17 years throughout Chris and Jeremy's time, and then later Luke Johnson and Richard Caring the last year. But Chris and Jeremy were very, very, with the Langhans background and Joe Allen's, they were very focused on the customer. The food was kind of an international brasserie, if you like. There was food from all over the world. And actually the reason I got the job, I sort of worked it out after a while. I used to go to, when I worked at this place in the city, Mr. Pontack's, I used to go and eat at Alistair Little's. And both Chris and Jeremy spotted me at the end of the night talking to Alistair in his basement bar.
Right.
So I think for them, that kind of, confirmed that I was a bit of a foodie. Alistair would talk about food non-stop. And so that, I think that kind of nailed it for me, really, job-wise.
So what year are we talking?
Thank you, Alistair, yeah. That was that would have been 30-something years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned Tony Allen, and because famously he was also Marco's fish supplier, wasn't he? And,
Yes, so he was sort of fish. He was a sort of new wave fishmonger, if you like. So he would send, he would send. I sort of worked with him on it really in the very beginning, and I sort of worked with him on because the Ivy was such a monster that we were buying fish in like sort of almost pre-portioned, and obviously that cut out not the whole lot, but it sort of cut out a person prepping fish and messing it up. So that was a big thing for him, really, sending fish in pre-portioned to restaurants because the chef knew what that portion cost. He knew the weight was going to be correct, and all they had to do was put it in the fridge and then put it in the pan.
Yeah.
So that was
that was quite a big innovation at the time, isn't it? It was.
Yeah, it was. It was. I think back then there used to be a lot of sort of crooked suppliers that used to come into the hotels and restaurants, and he was pretty much on it. He used to work for his mum, and then he grew a really large fish business.
Yeah.
And then working with Chris and Jeremy, I mean, I sort of had my own hand in it with their knowledge. I introduced menu tastings every week, and I sort of developed my own style of food then, because my style of food previous to that was very much what I'd sort of learnt at the Daughters Do on the Grove of the House. It was a little bit fine dining, but when it came to the Ivy and the Caprice, I really did find my feet in my sort of food style, and eventually ended up championing lots of British producers. And the menu became, pretty much British, and people came out of the woodwork, and farmers and producers and stuff. So
yeah. And so, I'm sure everyone who's watching knows this, but you must mention Chris and Jeremy, and obviously that's Chris Corbin and Jeremy King, who the owners of Caprice at the time, and obviously Jeremy Cole do all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy said a very pertinent thing to me once during the menu tasting or early days, and he said one thing to remember is cook what the customers want to eat, not what you think the customers should eat. So that phrase stays with me today, and I think a lot of chefs and restaurateurs should sort of have that in their head, really, because it's very true. Because I'm going to have a slight rant in a minute about menus these days. So yours and mine, old friend Charles Campion, the late Charles Campion, once said to me, Mark, he said, I think you write the best menus in London, and when I read your menu, I know more or less what week of the year, or at least month of the year, we're in, because my menus were very seasonal. And I read menus now, and I don't know where it's come from. It could have come from St. John, which wasn't quite like that. But you read a menu now, and it's ingredient, comma, ingredient, comma, ingredient, comma, ingredient, comma. Doesn't tell you how the meat or fish is cooked. It doesn't give you any provenance. It's really quite lazy. I mean, I did a dinner. Hugh won't mind me telling him, but I'm telling you, or the people watching. I did a dinner at the River Cottage, so I sent my menu in written as normal with breeds and all that sort of stuff on. And 2 hours, I asked before the dinner itself, I asked the restaurant manager if I can just check the menu for spelling and stuff. So she gave me the menu, and of course it was ingredient. So she stripped my menu apart. It was ingredient, comma, ingredient, comma, ingredient, comma.
Yeah.
And I said to her, this is not the menu I sent. I said, Hugh went to Eton. If I was his English teacher at Eton, he'd hardly get 1 out of 10 for this. and I'm sure Hugh didn't even see the menu, to be honest, and he wouldn't mind me talking about it. But yeah, there's just become, and people say, oh, it's the way menus are written these days, but it's not. Menu writing is a bit of an art form. Wording it in the right way that you inform the customer, the reader, totally about the dish, so they don't have to ask any questions. The way menus are written now, really, you're constantly asking the waiter questions. How's the brisket cooked? Is it got wine in the sauce? Is it got beer in the sauce? It's just completely. And number one, it comes across as being quite lazy, and number two, it just doesn't make good reading, really. But it's
Yeah, I
not.
mean,
It's common everywhere.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think it's difficult if you're, say, looking at 4 or 5 menus thinking, where do I fancy going tonight? You can't
Yeah.
make a decision because you don't know what,
No,
apart
exactly. I
from
mean,
Paul,
you know,
what the hell is it?
yeah, from a food restaurateur's point of view, you can kind of work out what it's going to be. But for a newbie, a customer,
Mm,
you're
yeah,
going to have to ask a lot of questions that really,
yeah,
puts the waiter at risk because they're going to have to stop every 2 minutes and go back to the kitchen or ask someone or make it up,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is, yeah. So that's my thing at the moment. I'll be writing about it on Substack soon, but it drives me completely mad. And even some of my proteges are doing it,
Yeah.
and I take the piss out of them. We're doing a dinner at Park Lane, 45 Park Lane next week, and Elliot Grover, good guy, good cook, and again he sent back the menu full of commas and ingredients. So I think mine is one of 5 courses on there that's written properly. He said, "Oh, it's marketing. It's marketing. It's not bloody marketing. It's nonsense."
So you were sort of at Caprice. You could, I suppose, you could sort of call it the heyday, couldn't you? I mean, it was.
Yeah.
What you were doing there was as influential as, say, Comran or what Marco or Gordon was doing at the time, but perhaps it was just a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I think it was the beginning. I always remember Jeremy one Sunday or Saturday coming downstairs with the Times, because back then you would read the Times, all of the weekend papers for the reviews and mentions about food. And Jeremy came down. He said, "Mark, look at this. This is fantastic." So it was like the top 5 chefs in London. And it was like Simon Hopkinson, Rowley Lee, Alistair Little, myself, and one other. I can't remember who it was now. And they sort of name checked. It might be Marco Pierre White. Name checked the 5 of us as people to look out for, because back then we're talking about 30 years ago now. And then there was another great day at the Caprice when Jonathan Meads had reviewed, and I'd really sort of got to grips with the menu. We had grilled rabbit with soft polenta, black olives and rosemary. I think I was one of the only ones doing a squid ink risotto on the menu, and the other dish I can't quite remember. But anyway, so he flagged up those dishes, and I think we got 4 out of 5 or something. Which, back then, I think it's quite nice that you're really being recognised by one of those great food writers.
Yeah, and I mean, it must have been. I mean, I've heard people talk about the kitchen at the Ivy in particular. I mean, it was quite hectic there, wasn't it? I mean, it was.
It was. I mean,
Brief.
the Ivy was. It was funny because the Caprice was quite a small restaurant, although it was quite busy. The Ivy, I mean, in today's terms, it wasn't that big a restaurant, really. It was like 80 seats or something, but we used to do 100 people pre-theatre, sometimes 100 people post-theatre, and then a few in between. But it was a bit of a beast at the time. It was busy. The menu was not complicated. The menu was simple, but it was, we used to get through a lot of staff, and the staff are much more experienced then. But yeah, that was a bit of a beast. And then Quaglino's opened and a few other big restaurants opened. So it was that sort of large London restaurant back then was, it created a bit of a theme, I think, really, for the way London restaurants were going. And now there's huge London restaurants, as you know.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Andrew Turville's book, The Blood, Sweat and Spread.
Yeah, I've not read it yet. I've flicked through it. Yeah.
He put shepherd's pie at the Ivy as one of the defining dishes of the 90s. Was that a big bestseller?
Yeah, it was. Winter and summer. It was a bestseller, so people would come in, because as you know, that the Ivy was a star-studded list of actors, musicians, acting agents, music agents, you name it. They would go to it was like a staff canteen, as the Caprice was. It was like a who's who staff canteen.
Yep.
So the menu really was geared up. We'd have bangers and mash, and we would have shepherd's pie. We'd have Thai baked sea bass. We'd have black risotto. We'd have spaghetti with white truffles, bang bang chicken, all within the same menu. Some old British classics like steamed puddings and that sort of stuff. And the clientele loved that. And another great thing that Jeremy told me, or Chris, in the days of the Caprice, where, people used to come there and do business. So you're either getting promoted, fired, hired, or and he said, just remember that a lot of these people have got a lot of talking to do. And some of the dishes, the salmon fish cake was a classic that, some of them should be, a dish that you can just eat with a fork. So if you think about a salmon fish cake, spinach, salmon fish cake, soy sauce, and they can do their talking, not have to poke around with a plate. And the other thing, they said was that, which is, so true, is that a lot of those customers know what they want to order before they arrive at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So in their head, it was bang bang chicken or Thai baked sea bass or bangers and mash or shepherd's pie, as you said. But we used to sell as many shepherd's pies in the summer as we did in the winter. And people used to, drink, back then, 40, 50, 60 quid bottle of wine with the shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
So it was that was hell of a thing, the shepherd's pie. I did actually make it when I was looking after the Groucho Club for a while. We put it on the menu there, and it flew out because there was a lot of old Ivy and Caprice regulars then.
Yeah. And it's still, obviously, if you go to an Ivy Collection restaurant, it's still on the menu there. What's your thoughts about the Ivy Collection?
The Ivy Collection. Okay. So obviously super successful.
Yeah.
Obviously not the Ivy, as in the real Ivy. I think we all know that the food comes out of a factory somewhere, but, probably well prepared.
Yeah.
Because I get sent photographs a lot of dishes of mine that have made their way on. So the famous frozen ice berries with hot white chocolate sauce was literally frozen berries, hot white chocolate sauce. And people send me photographs of the Ivy with a ball of sorbet in the middle, flowers on it, and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite funny, really, how, when you haven't got a hand in it anymore. Because that dessert, it was such a great dessert, the frozen berries and hot white chocolate sauce, that no one copied it because it wasn't taxing enough for pastry chefs.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's three ingredients: frozen berries, white chocolate, and double cream. Anyone, your 10-year-old could make it. But it was the most popular dessert.
Yeah.
And I always just say to people, if you're doing a dinner party at home, make this. But it never got copied. No, I tell a lie. Somebody stole it for a cookbook and didn't give me a credit. And they missed out an ingredient.
Really?
The double cream. So instead of phoning me and asking me what the actual recipe is, they just put melted hot white chocolate and the frozen berries. So of course you can imagine what's going to happen when you pour the melted chocolate onto frozen berries.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little competition for the audience. Who was that chef? That could be our first question.
I don't know the answer to that, actually. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what, actually, the person that gets it right, there's a couple of people that I know really well and they know who it is. They can have a place at one of my kitchen tables next year.
Okay.
How about that?
So we'll reveal that at the end, then, shall we? Yeah. So before we move on from this, we were talking about the fact that the place, the Ivy was just rammed with celebs, basically. Were there any? Did you have any sort of like particularly demanding VIP guests or anyone that was?
No, not really. Because the food, there was everything on the menu. There's something for everyone on the menu. And back then, there weren't very many vegans, no Ozempics, certainly no, all of these different allergies, which is, I can write a list as long as your arm. They didn't really exist then. We got very few vegetarians. If they were vegetarian, they'd choose something off the menu because we had quite a nice mix of vegetarian stuff. And so it was relatively straightforward executing, a large menu like the Ivies, really.
So
and I know these. No what?
No divas playing up, no Madonna making ridiculous.
I did a private dinner at a friend's house, and Madonna was there, and I did white truffle risotto, and she asked for Tabasco.
Okay.
So I think that there was a couple of stupid things like that, but you know what?
Yeah.
If let them have a bottle of Tabasco.
So you were there 17 years, so it's a long run, isn't it? So why did you decide to leave?
Well, so Chris and Jeremy left, sold up, and then Luke Johnson took over, and then Richard Caring. I won't go into any details. We actually didn't leave on bad terms, although the whole world thinks we did.
Yeah.
I just thought it's time to move on, really, which I did. And this restaurant arrived on my email one day, which was the old Rudland and Stubbs in Smithfield Market. And at the time, I'd just written a book, the British Regional Food, which wrote about oysters in London and old-fashioned taverns and chop houses. So in my head, I thought, wouldn't it be a nice thing to survive that? Because oysters are, apart from places like Bentley's, the Wright brothers wasn't around. Oyster restaurants in London almost sort of disappeared, really. And this was right at the time of mad cow disease. So not only did I call the restaurant Hix Oyster and Chop House, so all the meat was on the bone during mad cow disease, and it was credit crunch time. So I had all the everything against me, really.
Yeah.
But it was a huge success, because everyone thought that they were going to be eating Ivy Caprice type food, and I'd made sure that it was definitely back to basics, back to my own style. I remember in the first week, as always, you invite a few people, and Rick Stein said to me, "Mark, I think you've gone a bit over the top now. You used to put 3 ingredients on a plate. A lot of the dishes I've had tonight, there's only 1 ingredient on the plate. So it might be a piece of fish or a steak." And of course, that weekend, Adrian Gill reviewed it and, give us a blinding review about the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
So dear old Adrian used to follow me around and make sure that he was almost the first person in.
So, I mean, that when you think about it, that sort of paved the way in a way for restaurants like Hawksmoor, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I didn't, and what I didn't do, as I opened a new restaurant, I kept an element of the last one, but the rest was kind of different decor and everything. So, so the tram shed became, amalgamation of one steak that was on the Oyster and Chop House and the roast chicken, which I got from Chez L'Ami Louis in Paris, because the Oyster and Chop House was an influence from Chez L'Ami Louis. And then I just suddenly thought, okay, I think there's room in London for a big restaurant with chicken that just does chicken and steak, keep it really simple.
Yeah. And that was a big restaurant, wasn't it? So that was in
Shoreditch.
Shoreditch. And I mean, what's the capacity? It was a couple of hundred, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, a couple of hundred people.
Yeah.
It had a big Damien Hirst cow in formaldehyde, towering above the restaurant.
Yeah.
And my business partner at the time said, "If you put that in the restaurant, I'm not going to come." He was Hindu, so no beef. Anyway, I went ahead and did it. And it was a success. It was, people used to take photographs through the window and not come in to eat. But we used to get vegans, vegetarians in then sitting underneath the cow. And in the beginning, Damien Hirst had a show at the Tate, the one where they were throwing buckets of red paint over the building. So I had to get a security person in because I thought, oh Christ, if we get that lot in, it's going to really mess it up for us. But didn't have any trouble at all.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, it's probably good because at times only to mention you've got quite close connections with the art world in this country, haven't you?
I lived in the East End for most of my sort of career life, and got to know a lot of the YBAs and the younger artists. I used to host when I did the Rivington Grill. I hosted young gallery openings, and I used to exchange art for food, as in dinners and lunches. So I sort of ended up with quite a nice collection, really.
Yeah. I remember when I went to your restaurant Hix in Soho, Tracy Emin was at the next table. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was also part of the idea, because if you've got their work on the walls, it's more people would see it than going to a gallery even. So hence why I sort of got a nice collection of artists together that I knew. It was always important that I knew the artists, and they became part of the restaurant and a decor, really.
Yeah. And that you grew that restaurant business really quite rapidly, didn't you? From which is now Brito, isn't it? That site.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I suppose I became a bit of a serial restaurateur, opening quite a lot of sites, which I look back on and slightly regret going a little bit too fast. But when you get opportunities put in front of you, you sort of tend to gamble a bit. And I always liked a bit of a gamble. I was never a gambler, but I'd.
Yeah. But that coincided with a bit of a boom time in British restaurants, didn't it?
It certainly did. Yeah. And it was also a good opportunity for me to showcase English producers like Reg Johnson up north and Peter Hannon in Ireland. Lots of people dotted around the country that were, great producers, and it sort of put them on the map a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
and also writing about it as well. I could, put it in the weekend magazines.
Yeah. I'm going to say that those two books you wrote, the British regional food and British seasonal food.
Yeah.
Sort of, definitive works on the subject, aren't they? I mean,
they are. I could probably do a volume 2 of British regional now, because some of those people are dead, and I've since got a lot of new producers, both drinks and food. So that's certainly a book that could be picked up by a publisher. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a slight sort of not dichotomy, I suppose, but so you're really passionate about British food, but then also your influences are quite wide ranging, aren't they, in terms of your cooking style? But why is British produce so important to you?
Well, I just felt at that time that we're importing far too much stuff, and a lot of the because I mean, look at cheese as an example. The British and the Irish are fantastic cheesemakers. We win lots of gold medals over the French and the Italians in the World Cheese Awards, and I just suddenly thought I'm going to focus on sourcing and selling British food, because unless the farmers and the producers get the opportunity, I mean, look at vegetables now and fruit. Not so much fruit, but vegetables. All the different Trevisos and Tardivos and Italian stuff that all of the restaurants we're using is available in England now. We can go out in England. All those little baby vegetables, if you want to use them, are all available. Growers will actually sort of bend over to chefs' demands, really, and hence then customers, retail customers will start buying that stuff.
Yeah.
And also, with Brexit and everything, I think we need to keep as much in the UK as we can, really support our farmers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, you're talking about your sort of restaurant empire. It was sort of 2008 till what are we talking? Sort of mid
Yeah, until before lockdown, really. Just before
yeah, till
lockdown.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had I decided a couple of years before lockdown started to give away a bit of the company. I kept 25%, um, to sort of help me grow the business, if you like, and help with the business and to take a little bit of money out. And sadly, the business partners called me the day before lockdown and said, my board have decided to put your business into administration. So overnight, I lost everything, had to tell 130 staff that they haven't got jobs anymore and not being furloughed. So I basically lost the whole lot. The only thing I got out of it was I had to sell my name to them for quite a big sum. And it takes six-figure sum.
Wow.
And of course, that my name also went into administration. And so during lockdown, I bought it back for $7,000. So it's the only time I've really made any money.
So that's quite a shocking end to the story.
It was sad, whether it was a good thing that it happened or a bad thing, because lockdown did go on for a long time, whether those landlords would have demanded rent whilst we were closed or, I don't know. Really.
Yeah. But then, so COVID and post-COVID, I guess your life's changed a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, so when COVID started, I didn't have a business, I didn't have any staff, I didn't have any income coming in at all. So I had to cashed in all of my pension, started selling a few pieces of art, just to sort of scrabble by, the whole 2-year COVID period. I managed to buy the fish house back for $15,000. So I sort of had, plans of opening a new business, and then sort of just got back on my feet a little bit, but things were never the same really post COVID, especially in the countryside. So it was always a bit of a struggle. So, and I just last Christmas sold the restaurant to Mitch Tonks.
Right. Yeah.
So I now haven't got any restaurants. I haven't got any staff. I've got one part-timer, Joe, who's worked for me for 25 years. So, yeah, which is in a way, I mean, I wake up in the morning and I don't have any headaches as such.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the latest thing you're doing is this the kitchen table experience is actually
Yeah, well, I've done that for a long time actually. I've done that for about 14 years. So my kitchen here where I'm sat now is set up for 8 people. It's advertised once a month, or you can do a bespoke one if you've got 7 other people that want to do it. So I do 6 little seasonal courses. It's not a tasting menu as such. That's another thing that makes me angry. And I think most other people now, by the looks of it. Yeah. So it takes kind of half-size portions, if you like, with different local wines or tonics wine, which I'm involved in.
That's your joint venture with Mitch.
Well, do you know what? It's not a business. It was a bit of fun. Years ago, Mitch and I went to Quinta de la Rosa in Portugal, and Mitch said, "Oh, should we do a white wine to go with seafood?" So during the course of the day, we tasted a lot of wines, obviously, and then, the discussion around the table was, what should we call it? And someone said, "Oh, why don't you call it tonics? Half Tonks and half Hix."
Yeah.
So we had a little Google, and tonics with one N was a sports brand or something, or sports drink. So we stuck an extra N in, and we knew the wines that wanted to go in the bottle. And then I asked Tracy Emin to do the label, which she did in about 5 minutes, as you can see. So she ended up doing the label. So that wine, and it was a bit of fun. It's not a business. It's not. It's just when you've got lots of restaurants and stuff, it's quite nice to have your own label on something without having to, do anything to the vines or whatever, leave it to someone else, just to get them to put the label on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know.
And sorry, just on that subject, we every year Mitch and I now do a trip. This year's is to Portugal, to the vineyard.
Yeah.
2 nights, 2 dinners on the 25th of November. And Mitch and I host it with Sophia, the vineyard owner. So that's a regular thing that we do every year now. And the kitchen tables, as I was saying, is once a month scheduled, but you can do a bespoke one.
Yeah. Okay.
I also do Hix and Wild, which is a foraging day. I don't know if you can see that. So it's a foraging day. So we start off at my house. We go into the woods. We go to the estuary. I do a little bit of deer butchery halfway through, and then in the evening I'll do a 6-course with everything that we've picked during the course of the day.
Wow.
So that's another little thing we do, which is quite interesting because, people get to pick mushrooms that they don't know about, or weeds that they, tramp along or walk past or pull out of their garden every day, lots of wild food.
And you were going to mention one other thing before.
Oh, yes. So a project so Nettie, who illustrated Hook, the book you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We, for years now, I had a limited edition Andy Warhol book, which it was in Hix Soho, I don't know if you remember. And it was his grandmother's recipes and his illustrations. And I've always kind of fancied doing a version of that. So I spoke to Nettie, and I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
So there's so there's a series of 28 of these, all different fish and shellfish.
Oh wow!
And these are age 3. This one's a crayfish.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, fantastic.
And they're just sort of briefly written recipes. But we're making them into a book, so they should arrive any moment. So it's a nice coffee table book.
Yeah.
And the whole book is got all of the prints in, and the book is going to be the same price as the prints. Really. So
and the prints are available to all.
Yeah, you can buy them online from Jealous Gallery. Jealous Jelous Gallery, which is in Shoreditch.
Right. Okay.
We'll put the links and stuff on this on the.
Yeah. I'll put them once it goes up on my page. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got lots of book ideas in my head, and some books which are partially written.
Right.
But for some reason these days, the publishers, maybe we're getting too old.
Yeah, publishing works in mysterious ways in my experience. I've never really understood it as an industry. So, I don't know. But, we're missing out on a new hit, Mark Hix book.
Yeah.
I was going to say...
a couple of people asking questions in here.
I cannot see the questions, unfortunately. I'm
No.
not able to read them.
No, Joe's just messaged me to say people are messaging saying they can't hear me.
They can't hear you?
The first person to get it right. Not everyone. Fishy Tales page online.
No,
Can everyone hear? I hope so. Otherwise you have to do it again. Can everyone hear?
No.
I can hear both of you. Okay, yeah, people have got messages here they can hear. I don't know why Joe, can you hear? Can you message?
Well, so I can't see any of the messages. If anyone's asking questions, unfortunately, I can't see them. Are you able to see them, Mark? Or no?
No messages. Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, let me.
Someone send me a question. There's people saying they can hear now. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, let me ask some cookery questions just to wrap up. Then
nothing difficult, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, one thing I was wondering is, do you think there's anything that home cooks can learn from how professional chefs cook in the professional kitchen?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I think you can learn a lot by eating out. We all cook slightly differently, different methods. Fine dining, I've never been into. There's and the sort of food that I cook is obviously quite simple. And Fergus Henderson and, Jeremy Lee and lots, I can rattle off a lot of people that just cook very simple food. And, like Henry Harris and Neil Borthwick, for example, they cook, great, bouchon, bistro food. And that is completely different than lots of other fine dining restaurants in London, because I think from a fine dining restaurant, and this goes back to the tasting menus, I suppose, do you want to do that at home? Not really. Do you want to learn how to do that? Maybe not. So, I think you can learn by eating out. You can learn by watching, luckily the Telegraph do videos online, reading cookery columns and...
Yeah. I mean, are there any sort of, techniques, or I don't know, maybe something simple as me?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the first thing I learned when I went to catering college was, here we are, there's some questions popping up now.
Excellent.
When I went to catering college, the first thing you do is learn how to cut a shallot very finely, an onion, crushing garlic, cutting things into julienne, little strips and stuff. Okay, so Carp, can you see the questions?
I cannot, no.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll do the questions. So Carl Pendle, my son is a 19-year-old chef. What advice would you give him? He works at South Lodge near Gatwick. South Lodge, I think that's a little country house, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I would say to him, as a young chef, especially 19-year-old, to probably, spend a couple of years in each place. Don't keep hopping around, but also go to places that, have a different style of food. So you're not really just focusing on one particular style, because what happened to me, the food at the Grosvenor House in London and Anton Mosselman, it was quite fine dining or nouvelle cuisine back then. Remember nouvelle cuisine, Andy?
I do, just about.
But that's not something that I did, going forward in my career. So I would certainly advise him, Carl, to, do a couple of years and then move on to something completely different and let him decide then what he's comfortable with cooking. Because, food does go in and out of fashion. So what is fashionable this week might not be fashionable in a year's time. So food that's here to stay. Max Dawes, question from the Isle of Wight. What's an alternative to bull shot to serve on a shoot day? Right. So I do several versions of bull shot. I do one with, I don't throw things away. So I do a shell shot. So crab bones, prawn shells, lobster shells, I make into a stock and freeze them, and then add the same ingredients as a bull shot and do exactly the same thing. Yeah, so we call it a shell shot. And then I do one with a game stock, which particularly for shooting, using all the carcasses and stuff. And I call that... it's normally pheasant bones. I normally call it a cock shot, as in the cock pheasant, because we couldn't think of a decent name for it.
For the uninitiated,
if anyone's got any suggestions of what I should call a game version of a bull shot, please let me know. Emily's joined. Emily's got... Hi, Emily.
Can I just ask, just before we move on, what, for the uninitiated, what is a bull shot? What's in a bull shot?
So classically, a bull shot was very rarely made with fresh beef stock. It was nearly always canned consomme with vodka, Worcester sauce, Tabasco, and a bit of lemon juice. And that was a hot drink that you would take hunting.
Right. Okay.
Max had just said, "Thank you, cockshot it is." But do save your shells, Max, because a shell shot is very, very good. Imagine a lobster stock for all the leftovers, shells and carcasses. Yeah. What did you ask, Andy, again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
I'm doing your job here. I'm reading the questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry about this.
No, it's fine. That's good. Thank you.
Extremely-
Cockshot it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anything else coming up?
No, I'm sure they're thinking. They're thinking of some trick questions to ask me.
What about a sort of quick
Here we are.
and easy dish? Have you got something that you cook at home often when you know?
Well, actually, before, just wait there 1 second.
Yeah.
Before we went on air, I've been picking lots of mushrooms this year. So we've got chanterelles and hedgehogs here.
Oh, amazing.
From a few days ago. When the seps, they've almost finished now, but we're still getting loads. We must have got, in about 3 weeks, 150 kilos, me and my friend.
Wow.
Gussie's saying, who stole the recipe and missed out the cream? Now, I've told her this story before. She may have been drunk or something and forgotten the answer. Gussie, think about it, but you're not allowed to win. Anyone got any ideas who that chef? Famous, very famous. I'll give you a slight clue. I was at a party, probably about 20, or it was when I brought out British regional food. I was at a party and this famous person, one of his chefs, they just opened, Carl Pendle has just got it right. Gordon Ramsay, yes.
Really?
So, yeah. So I was at this party and Mark Sargent, who worked for Gordon Ramsay, was standing next to me. He said, "Oh, Hixie, we've got your new book, British Regional Food, and we use it like a Bible in the kitchen." Standing right behind us was a journo from the Standard, whose name I've completely forgotten now, listening to everything. So next day, I had loads of calls from an unknown caller, as did Gordon probably, and I didn't answer any of them. So they decided to make the story up, and we got a double page in the Evening Standard. There was, on one page was a photograph of British regional food, and on the other page was Gordon Ramsay's pub sign, the narrow inn. Do you remember, down in the Docklands?
I do.
So I thought, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go and see what it's like. And I must say, they did a fantastic job on copying the dishes in the book. I mean, they looked the same as the photographs. They tasted great. Yeah.
I remember that actually, because it's like things like your London particular and all that.
Yeah, that was on the menu.
Yeah.
There was like the game dumpling. There was also, most of the book. He was absolutely right. I mean, it was literally, they used it as a Bible.
I actually reviewed the Narrow for the Metro. I must have a look in my look back in my review and see if I mention your name.
It was a big story at the time. Sort of slightly I mean, I don't, I don't care. I mean, it's,
Yeah. Well, that's cool for you.
Carl, yes, there we are. Congratulations, Carl.
So mushroom. Sorry, were you going to say a dish that you?
Oh yeah, sorry. So just before we went on air, I just did a little pasta with the chanterelles, but there's some lovely hedgehog fungus here. I mean, we literally, my friend Nick and I, when the seps were here, every single forager in the area was out picking seps, and I sat there with Nick one day. We had about 30 kilos, drinking a pint of Guinness, and I'd phoned 4 restaurants to ask if they wanted these secs or penny buns. And all of them said to us, we were going to give them away, we were going to exchange them for wine and dinner or lunch or something. And all of them said the same thing. They said, oh, someone's just been and we just bought some. So I found one more person. He said, oh, yeah, bring them over. So Nick and I went to Parnham House, and the 2 other foragers that had been selling them to the other restaurants were there. So we ended up just giving the mushrooms away to Robin, the chef. But they've literally been raping the woods, these guys. So Nick and I now have to go out and look for new woodland. So we were in a spot the other day, and there was a gate that said private property, do not enter. So Nick and I thought that's the spot. So we hopped over the gate, and we had 5 kilos of chanterelles in about an hour.
Wow. I mean, we're talking quite a lot of money for that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, London, but I always keep an eye on the London price list because I get sent it, and they're getting like 65 quid a kilo wholesale at the moment.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
and with that, sorry, that pasta dish, was that like a cream sauce you made? Or?
No, I just did the old fashioned carbonara. I just did I've got hedgerow, 3-cornered leek outside my house. Some of that, I've got some smoked pig's cheek, which I bought. So I just use that, chanterelles, and then an egg yolk to finish. Take it off the heat, stir in an egg yolk.
Lovely.
Okay. Yeah, I spotted in God, I've gone blank. What's that nice butcher's called in London? I must go to the fridge and get the label. The ginger pig.
Yeah.
I just spotted one day out of the corner of my eye. They were selling these smoked pig cheeks, which is basically guanciale.
Yeah.
And they were like 3 quid each. So I bought a load up, and now every time I go to London, I just do a little stock up on them. But they're perfect for that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, great tip. Okay, well, it's nearly 7 o'clock, so I think our time is up. So thanks very much, Mark, for your
Thanks, everyone.
time. It's been great.
Not enough questions, but it's been a pleasure, Andy, and nice to see you.
Yeah, and see you again soon, hopefully. And thanks everyone for joining. If you missed,
and follow us on Substack.
Yeah, and
keep an eye out for Fishy Tales, which will be on Substack, and when it's out, and our newsletters. Sign up to our newsletters for the Hix and Wild kitchen tables, and there may be a couple places left in Portugal.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks again, Mark, and see you again soon.
Good, thanks, Andy.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.